It was raining when Emma Clark walked into St. Helena Hospital for the last time. The old hospital sat on the edge of a quiet British town, surrounded by dark woods and whispers of the past. It had been scheduled for closure for over a year. Only a few patients remained, those who had no family or nowhere else to go. Most of the staff had already transferred to newer hospitals. But Emma stayed. "This will be my last shift," she told herself, adjusting her white uniform. She had worked here for 7 years, but tonight felt different. The moment she stepped inside, the automatic doors opened slower than usual, creaking as if groaning in pain. The lobby was dimly lit. Half the lights had gone out last week, and no one bothered to fix them. "Even the building is giving up," she muttered. Emma walked to the nurse's station on the 3rd floor, Ward C, where the remaining patients were kept. The elevator made a low whining sound as it climbed up. Inside, the mirrors had been cracked for months. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of her own tired face. But just before the door shut completely, she thought she saw something behind her. A figure. Just for a second. She turned around. Nothing. When the doors opened again, she shook it off. Ward C was quiet. Too quiet. Nurse Haley, who had covered the previous shift, looked pale and shaken. "Everything all right?" Emma asked. Haley hesitated, then nodded too quickly. "Yes. Just tired. It's your last night, huh?" Emma smiled. "Yup. Starting next week, I'm off to Greenfield Medical. Clean halls, new equipment, working elevators." Haley forced a smile, grabbed her bag, and said, "Be careful tonight." Then she walked away quickly. Emma watched her leave, confused. Something was wrong. She started her rounds. 3 patients were left in Ward C. Mr. Dalton, 83, barely conscious, always staring at the ceiling. Mrs. Price, 78, who hadn't spoken in 3 days. Tommy, a 9-year-old boy in a coma from a car accident 2 months ago. As she checked on them one by one, she felt it. A coldness in the air that wasn't there before. In room 312, where Tommy lay silent, Emma checked his 4. The boy's face was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Then suddenly, the heart monitor spiked for a second. Beep beep. Emma froze. Then it went flat again. He was still in a coma. "Just a glitch," she whispered, though her hands were shaking. When she turned to leave, the door slammed shut by itself behind her. She jumped, grabbed the handle, and opened it again. The hallway was darker than before. Back at the nurse's station, Emma sat down to make notes. Her pen ran out of ink, so she opened the drawer for another. Inside was a Polaroid photo she'd never seen before. It showed a nurse standing next to a hospital bed, this ward. But the nurse wasn't Emma, and the bed was empty. Written in red ink on the back, "I told you not to stay for the last night." Emma dropped the photo. That was when the light started flickering. And from the intercom, silent for months, came the voice of a little boy. "Nurse Emma, you forgot me." Her breath caught. She looked at the rooms down the hall. Tommy's room door was now wide open. But she had closed it earlier. Slowly, carefully, Emma walked down the hall. Her footsteps echoed on the old linoleum floor. Every step felt heavier. When she reached room 312, the bed was still there. Tommy still lay in it, eyes closed. But the monitor was unplugged. And written across the wall in what looked like bloody red crayon were 4 chilling words. "You shouldn't be here." Emma turned and ran. But when she reached the elevator, it wasn't there. Only an open shaft. A whisper floated out from the darkness below. "Jump, nurse! It's quicker that way." Emma backed away from the open elevator shaft, heart pounding in her chest. The whisper was gone, but its echoes still rang in her ears. Jump, nurse! She stumbled back into the hallway, breathing hard, trying to make sense of what was happening. This is just exhaustion, she whispered. That's all. Just nerves. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Terribly wrong. She returned to the nurse's station, but the lights were now completely off. The emergency backup lights glowed a faint red, casting long shadows on the walls. Emma turned on her flashlight. As she did, she noticed something strange on the whiteboard, the one used to track patient names. 3 names had always been written there: Mr. Dalton, Mrs. Price, Tommy Carter. But now, there was a 4th name, freshly written in black marker. Eleanor Hart, room 316. Emma blinked. Room 316 had been locked and unused for years. She had passed it every night for months. The door was sealed after a fire that killed a patient and a night nurse 5 years ago. She grabbed her clipboard and checked the official list. No Eleanor Hart. No patient assigned to that room. Shaking, Emma took her keys and walked down the hallway, flashlight in hand. The air grew colder as she passed each room, and she could feel something watching her. She reached room 316. The door, which had always been sealed with chains and yellow tape, was now slightly open. She slowly pushed it with her gloved hand. Creak. The room smelled of ash and something rotten. The window was blacked out with soot. The bed frame was twisted, half melted. And on the floor, drawn with a child's crayon, was a circle. Inside it, in shaky red letters, "She never left." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Locked. Emma spun around, her flashlight flickering. Then, in the broken mirror by the sink, she saw it. A woman standing behind her. A nurse. Pale skin, burnt uniform. Her eyes were hollow, but they bled tears of black. Emma turned. No one there. But the whisper came again. "She let me die. Don't be like her." Emma screamed and kicked the door until it flung open. Back at the nurse's station, Emma tried to call security. No signal. No phone line. She checked the computer. It had rebooted itself and now showed only one thing on the screen. Code. Nightfall protocol engaged. Lockdown in progress. No exits available until sunrise. "What the hell is going on?" she whispered. She heard something then. Footsteps. But not normal footsteps. They were wet, as if someone was walking barefoot and bleeding. She turned toward the sound. Mrs. Price's room. She opened the door to room 314. The bed was empty. The sheets were soaked in what looked like muddy water, and long strands of gray hair. On the window, someone had written in the condensation, "She knows you're here." Emma backed away slowly, until she bumped into something. She turned. It was Mrs. Price, standing in the corner, eyes wide open, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered, "Don't trust the boy. He's not asleep anymore." Emma ran. Emma returned to room 312. Tommy's bed was still there, but now it was empty. His hospital bracelet lay on the pillow. Next to it, a crayon. And on the wall, another message, this time scrawled like a child's writing. "Play with me, Nurse Emma." Then, down the hallway, the lights flickered. And at the end of the hall, just for a second, she saw him. Tommy. Standing. Grinning. Holding a teddy bear, covered in blood. Emma stood frozen at the end of the hallway. Tommy, supposedly in a coma, was now walking, barefoot, smiling at her with cold, empty eyes. The teddy bear in his hand dripped something thick and red. She called out, "Tommy?" He said nothing, just stared. Then, without warning, he turned and ran around the corner, disappearing into the darkness. Emma followed him, heart hammering, flashlight shaking in her hand. She turned the corner. Nothing. Only silence and a smell, like smoke and medicine. And then she heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter. But twisted, like it was coming from old, damaged tape. She followed the sound to the end of the corridor and stopped at a door she had never seen before. There was no number on it, just a rusted plaque. Children's isolation, closed permanently. Emma hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a long, narrow room with 6 small beds, all neatly arranged. Dust floated in the air. The walls were covered with children's drawings, all of them showing a nurse with no face. One drawing showed the nurse holding a needle-dripping black liquid, standing over a child in bed with excess for eyes. Another showed a figure hanging from the ceiling, labeled in shaky crayon, Nurse Eleanor. Emma backed out of the room, bile rising in her throat. That's when the door slammed shut behind her. She turned, but it wasn't the same hallway anymore. Everything had changed. The walls were no longer clean. They were peeling, soaked in something dark. The lights overhead flickered violently. She ran. Every hallway now twisted in impossible angles. Doors that should lead to rooms opened into dead ends, or worse, walls covered in handprints. She passed a mirror. Her reflection wasn't following her movements. It stared at her, then smiled. "He's still waiting, Emma." She punched the glass. It shattered. Then the intercom buzzed again. It crackled, then played a child's voice. "Why did you lie, Nurse Emma? Why did you say we were safe? You left us." Emma screamed. "What are you talking about?" The answer came softly. "The fire." Memories hit her like a brick wall. 5 years ago. Before she was Nurse Emma Clark, she was Emma Hart. Her real name. She had changed it after the incident. A fire had broken out in the children's wing of St. Helena. 6 children died. The official report blamed faulty wiring. But that wasn't the truth. Emma had been the night nurse on duty. She was the one responsible for keeping the generator running during the blackout. She had left her post for only 10 minutes. But that was enough. And one of the children who died was Eleanor Hart, her younger sister. Secretly admitted without using her real surname. Emma had buried it. Buried everything. Changed her name. Requested to be reassigned. Pretended she had never worked that shift. But St. Helena never forgot. And neither did they. She returned to room 316. It was wide open now. Inside, the same melted bed, but now there were 6 children standing in a circle, each with burned faces. Silent. Tommy stood in the center. He looked up at her, eyes glowing faintly. "You said we'd be safe, Emma." Emma collapsed to her knees. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean to. I was just tired. I was only gone for a moment." Tommy shook his head. "Moments kill." Then he held out a small object. Her old nurse's ID badge, singed at the edges. The name on it, Emma Hart. Behind her, a voice whispered, "You can't run from who you are. This is your last night, because it's always been your last night." Emma turned and saw herself, standing there, wearing a burned nurse uniform, smiling. She tried to escape again, but every hallway led back to the same room, the isolation ward. Every time she opened a door, she ended up where she began. The children now circled closer. Tommy stepped forward one last time. "You left us once. Now we are leaving you, here." One by one, they vanished into the walls. Lights blinked out, until everything went black. Security logs would later show that all doors in the hospital remained locked until sunrise. When investigators arrived, They found no trace of Nurse Emma Clark, only her flashlight lying in the middle of room 316, flickering on and off. The hospital was silent. Emma lay on the cold floor of room 316, curled up, her breathing shallow. Around her, shadows danced and flickered. The children were gone. Tommy was gone. Her reflection gone. Only the memories remained. She whispered to the darkness, "I'm sorry. I should have stayed. I should have protected you." The walls didn't answer, but the silence felt softer now. Warmer somehow. Then she heard something. A heartbeat. Not hers. She opened her eyes. In front of her stood a little girl. No burns, no blood, just a simple hospital gown and kind, sad eyes. Her face was familiar. Eleanor. Her little sister. Alive. At least, something like alive. Emma sat up slowly. Her voice cracked. "Ellie." Eleanor nodded. "You remembered," she said softly. "It took you long enough." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I didn't want to. It hurt too much." Eleanor stepped closer. "I know. But hiding doesn't heal anything." Behind her, the 6 children appeared again. But this time, they looked different. Not like ghosts. Peaceful. Free of pain. Tommy stepped forward. "You stayed. That means something." Emma looked around. "Am I dead?" Eleanor shook her head. "Not yet. But you're close." She took Emma's hand. "You don't have to stay in the dark anymore." Emma felt a warm spread from her sister's touch. The walls of the hospital began to brighten, the decaying wallpaper peeling away, revealing white, clean walls beneath. The burned smell disappeared. The hallway lights flickered on. For the first time in hours, there was light. Emma stood outside room 316, but it wasn't burned anymore. The room had been restored. The beds were empty and neatly made. The floor sparkled. The children had vanished peacefully. Eleanor gave her one last hug. "You're not the same nurse you were that night. You've changed. You cared." Emma held her tightly, whispering, "I love you. I'm so sorry." "I know." Eleanor smiled. "That's why you're getting out of here." Then Eleanor walked backward into the light and disappeared. The sun began to rise. Security cameras at St. Helena Hospital, which had recorded static for hours, suddenly came back online. A guard doing the morning rounds was shocked to find Emma standing quietly in the lobby, holding her old ID badge in one hand, her eyes red from crying, but very much alive. He called out to her. She turned, smiled weakly, and said, "I think I'm ready to go home now." The hospital was demolished. A memorial plaque was placed near the front gate, listing the names of the 6 children and 1 nurse who had died in the fire years ago. But beneath it, someone had quietly added another plaque without any ceremony. "To those who carry guilt, may you also find grace." Emma now worked in a pediatric ward at a new hospital. Her patients said she was the kindest, gentlest nurse they'd ever had. Some nights, when the halls are quiet, she swears she hears laughter, soft and innocent. Not scary anymore. Just children, finally at peace.